Hanging in there. How about you guys?
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Similarly to Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's been a long day today. I don't really know why, but it's been a very long day. All right, episode 247. Let's start with a little chat about our good friends at Green King, shall we? Let's get that knocked out real quick. So, as always, episode 247 is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. The league season is entering the business end, as people love to say, and we have a brutal run-in. But Green King Sport venues will be showing every single televised Albion fixture over the run-in. With more than 900 sports pubs across the UK, it doesn't matter where you're based, you can catch every single minute of the action. Football is best enjoyed with your mates, even if you are watching us get pumped 4-0 in Rome. So if you're not at the ground this month, get a text in the group chat and head to your local Green King Sports venue to catch the game. Don't forget to download the Green King Sports app to enjoy exclusive competitions and discounts whenever there's a game on. With that being said, we have two games to discuss today, and one rapidly approaching with a big break after that. So first of all, Stephen Mitchell in the chat. Good afternoon. Hope you're well. Adam and Craig, how are we feeling? Adam, your power's just about come back on, I believe. So you're here. You must be doing better than you were an hour ago. But how have you two been this week? How's everything been going?
Yeah, look, didn't have a great day Thursday. So I'm not sure why. But outside of that, we're all right. Nothing too crazy. The time this isn't particularly interesting, but the clocks have changed now. We were just talking about it before we came on air. So now the time difference between the US and the UK is 4 hours on the East Coast, which is great. We get to enjoy some friends and family for an extra hour in the day. So, things are all right. Outside of the fact that when you have a kid, daylight savings time is basically a complete curse because all of the sleep training you've done for the past X number of months is thrown out the window. So, yeah. Craig, what about you?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Apart from Thursday, which we'll probably talk about. All good this end. So, like you said, it's nice to have an extra hour of sunlight when you don't have a kid. So, yeah, it's great. But Josh, you were in Rome, right?
I was, yeah. An impromptu trip over there, and it was great, barring 90 minutes of football. It was superb. The 90 minutes is, I think, as they say in Blackadder, it started badly, tailed off a little bit in the middle, and the less said about the end, the better. But other than that, excellent. it really wasn't great.
And you were there with Robin as well. Robin can't join us today, but he was there, so we were representing.
Yeah, 50% turnout. Better than most elections, isn't it? Really,
pretty much. That. Yeah, just as bad a result though. But yeah, as in most of them. So
yeah, you're not wrong. James, hello, Mikey in the chat. What a return! Like, where have you been, Mikey? Forza Lazio. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that specific chant because I saw several people almost join the stabbed list for saying things like that this week. But yeah,
what a week, by the way. What a crazy week for this club. What has been going on? People getting stabbed, like we get battered. We then what a bizarre week.
Yeah, let's start with Roma, of course, despite the result being atrocious. So I think people were making their way over there from Tuesday, really, in earnest. But Wednesday was the big travel day, I think. There was a lot of people on my flights, and my flights were like finicky as hell. So, there's a lot traveling when you've got like a quarter of the plane going from London City Airport to Milan to Rome and back. And I saw the same groups all coming back on the same plane. So, first of all, London City Airport, never flown out of it in my life. Lovely little place. Highly recommend. Secondly, I had no idea. I'm bad at European geography, really, and had no idea that I would be flying over the Alps. Love that. Beautiful. Unbelievable. But we get to Rome. Everything's lovely. Get to the apartment that my missus has booked for me on Airbnb. She goes, "It's beautiful. Trust me, you'll love it." Get there, immediately find out the gentleman that is built like a brick shit house at about 6'5", welcoming me to the apartment is a Roma fan and will be there in earnest the next day. So I was already fearful for my life. I was going to be like swatted the next night if we got a good result.
Hold on though, your missus just booked you your travel stuff. That's
yeah. So that's just like the very skin surface level of like how much of an MVP she was in a situation. So I was not going to be going. Like she could not get the time off of work, and she's always wanted to go to Rome. I feel like it's most people want to go anyway, but like Americans especially have a big love for Rome and Paris. Those two have been very high on her list, and we drew Roma. I told her the whole time like Roma was the one game that I wanted us to get, for better or worse. Worse was obviously how it ended. But as soon as we drew them, she was like, "You should go on your own." And I was like, "No, like that's not fair. Like I'm not going to go to Rome of all places and leave you alone." Well, it got to like the night after season tickets went on sale, and there was like 50 or 60 left. And she was like, "Oh, there's 50 left." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And she was like, "You really should go." Like, and she just like browbeat me basically for 20 minutes of me trying to be like, no, like you can't go. It's not fair. Da, 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 da. She was like, she goes, your people at work, your manager is still working right now. Cause it was like 7:30 at night. She was like, "They're on Eastern time. I know they're working. You get on the laptop and ask him like if you can get the time off." So I got on there. He just said yes immediately. Like he was like, "That sounds incredible. Definitely do it." Bear in mind, this lad's going to a River Plate game this weekend, so he's big into the football as well. So he was like, "Yes, definitely take it." So we book it all. She was like, "I've already got your accommodation sorted out. Like, I just need to press buy." Like, so she basically bullied me into going to Rome because I felt bad that I shouldn't, but then she like basically forced me onto it. And
you must be an absolute pain in the ass to live with if she wants you to leave that badly. Please just go to Rome. Please get out. She's hoping the European tour just continued indefinitely. Like, oh God, I hope they make the final.
She's eagerly looking at the reports for stabbings. No, I'm joking.
Jesus. Sponsors will love that.
Yeah, definitely. But we went out, and the people that I generally go to games with kind of shared their location with a lot of us because we were all getting in at like totally random times. So they were all kind of like, as they were moving from bar to bar and accumulating more of us as they went, it was just like, here's where we are now. And I got there about 8:30, had a couple of beers with them, had a good time. And we watched a little bit of the City game, which was obviously just like a joke. And throughout that, there was two separate incidences. Bear in mind, this is at 8:30 in the evening. This is not super late yet. 2 times that we had younger men, all in black, walking by, beckoning us out of the bar. Needless to say, nobody went to see them. But it was pretty clear what they were hoping to get out of that. They wanted a scrap. Like
all in black. It wasn't the refs. It was PGMO there just trying to finally get some revenge.
Yeah, this is for deserving. So you can see the writing on the wall pretty early, right? They were out to cause trouble. I know that several people, two fans definitely got stabbed. A third one got mugged, I think. And I know that one of them wasn't Roma fans. It was just thieves. And the other one was definitely Roma fans. So you could tell the writing was on the wall from like 8:30 at night. Like these guys were out on a Wednesday, like out to cause trouble. Great night. Left the bar, went straight to the taxi rank. It was in like Trastevere or something like that. It was like a very like populated area. Waiting at the taxi rank on my lonesome, and I saw 3 separate cabs with Brighton fans getting into them, bum rushed by Roma fans, who then proceeded to try and rip the doors open, smash windows, and kick in the doors to essentially get into them while they're like fish in a barrel and attack them inside taxis. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, so this is the unreported stuff that you're getting from idiots on the ground. Like
well,
me.
this is also
So,
let's not be too xenophobic, but like this is the same, set football fans that broadly still do monkey chants at games like this. The Italian fans, large swathes are absolute scum.
Yeah, and you saw it, unfortunately, a lot. The face of that was very much out and about Wednesday night. There was several incidences. My sister went. She almost had several friends get badly hurt. They were in a situation with a taxi like that. She thinks the only reason it didn't escalate was because they had a kid in the back, like a 14-year-old lad in the back, and her in the car. And she thinks that's the only reason they stopped, because they ripped open the passenger front door and were like trying to lunge into the back to attack them with like bowls and shit. But I watched 3 back to back happen, and I couldn't get in my cab quick enough. And it was just me, and I was obviously not dressed in club colors, so like I just cruised away. But there was a lot, and they weren't even dressed in like home shirts or anything. Like one of them would maybe have like a blue polo neck on or something, and like they just assumed, or like they would just kind of follow them from the bar, I assume, and just guessed. But there were a lot of essentially
we've
what
got
I'm
no
trying to say
history
is,
with them.
not at all. No, not at all. Basically, short version is there was a lot of stuff that went unreported on Wednesday night alone that I saw in my tiny little microcosm. I can only imagine how many near misses took place throughout Rome on Wednesday night, frankly. We've obviously heard of the ones that went all the way and were horrendous. The amount of possible situations, I think, are really quite scary to imagine. And I know it wasn't a just like a nonsensical thing, because they literally shouted F Brighton as they were doing it. So like they knew exactly what they were doing. So yeah, it was pretty bad. Thursday rolls around, gets ready for the game. The logistics was actually excellent. It took just 2 trips for all 3,500 fans to get to the stadium. They had like a police like escort from the park they picked us up at all the way down. There was not a single Roma fan in sight in this park, and there was a lot of us. So if they wanted to cause trouble and hurt people, throw missiles, whatever, they could have, but there was cops everywhere. Police escort all the way to the ground. Getting into the ground was like as if I was like trying to get into like the Pentagon. Like I've never seen anything like it. 4 separate searches. 1 by stadium staff, 2 by cops, 1 by military dudes, like military police. Like it was just the most extreme shit. Like, and it was thorough searches too. Like they were just like give me like a nice like thigh massage. Like it was like ridiculous. Like they were going all in.
I bet they didn't do that with the bloody Roma fans though. But they just let them
clearly
stroll
not,
in,
right?
Yeah.
And that was something that we were all talking about in the line too. Like, why is this happening? And like, people are being made to throw away battery packs and stuff like that for their phones. But evidently, we saw later on that people were launching missiles at us, like at Albion fans on that's left hand side of the stadium, willy nilly with no problem. So very strange. The whole thing was very strange, and all I kept thinking was, imagine if this was the return leg and Albion fans were doing this, we would be banned from Europe for 5 years. Like straight up. It's wild that it just seems to be consequence free. And then obviously the game. What did you guys make of that starting 11, fellas? I've talked a lot in this opening 14 minutes. So the floor is yours to talk about what that starting 11 looked like. What were you thinking, given the amount of rotation and rests that we gave to players, resulting in some pretty poor results before Rome?
Oh, Craig, what did you think?
I mean, yeah, hindsight's lovely, isn't it? But you can say like, oh, it was dreadful, but I mean, it was about as good as you could probably put out. I think not having Veltman on, starting Lamptey, given his European form and stuff, was a good idea. I just say, yeah, I don't like the three at the back at all. And sort of
was it three at the back or was it four? Like, I feel like we sort of changed a little bit. Josh, was it easier to see at the game? Like, it was a bit weird.
It definitely looked like four at the back on the lineups sheet, didn't it? But as the game started and really started, it very clearly was a three at the back with a Dingra at left wing back, and he was a fish out of water all game. And ironically, De Rossi came out to the press afterwards and said he targeted Buonanotte, and that was part of the reason they won. They put Spinazzola against Buonanotte, and that was like a big win for them. But only one of their goals came from the right-hand side, our right-hand side. The majority of their goals, well, the set piece we'll talk about, obviously, with the offside, but their first two goals came from primarily Adingra and Igor as part of a back five playing left-sided centre-half and left wing-back, where we've seen that just does not work. Like, Adingra was horribly out of position for both goals that led to the total defensive mix-up, really.
Yeah, I think Adingra is your main attacking asset, right? So having him at left wing back and sort of Lamptey on the right wing back as well. Just even like 5 or 6 minutes in, I don't know. Not that the writing was on the wall, because again, hindsight's wonderful, but it was like, why is our most sort of prized attacking asset being asked to do left wing back right now? If you try and go there and get any result, I get it, but he's your only attacking outlet, really. Like you said, Buonanotte was tied up, and Cisso's still not fully fit. I still think he was half a yard off the pace as well. So, but lineup in general, I think, yeah, you would put Verbruggen in for Steele, but we've had that conversation a million times, and maybe Veltman instead of Lamptey, and resorting to that back four. I think we spoke last time, having Lamptey in a 4 just immediately makes it a 5 or a 3, just because of his willingness to go up and down. But it was as good as we could probably put out.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, and it's funny you talk about Adingra not being that. He was our best player.
He was,
despite that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that was, but it left the team too open. I agree, lineup wise, it's not like you look at it and went, "Oh God, no! What are we doing?" Like, it was fine, but with the limitations that you have, and like you said, there was a lot of players being played on form there. Notably, I think if you were just doing like an on paper team, you Igor's out, Estupinian's in, and Lamptey's out, and Veltman's in, and you feel more solidified there. But we've seen how Estupinian's been playing, and clearly De Zerbi had a way that he'd wanted to play the game. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if you look at sort of like heat maps for where the players end up playing, like Adingra was furthest up the pitch, second only to Welbeck. He was all the way up there, which left Igor fairly isolated on the left side, and then Dunk ended up having to play left-sided in that middle bit to compensate for that, which meant Van Hecke had to basically run the entire right half of our half himself. From a heat map standpoint, he was the right quarter of the pitch. And you can then see, like, if you look at Roma's, they stacked their right side a little bit more, like with about 6 different players to push up on that. Again, targeting that sort of left side, as you sort of hinted at, Josh, where they claimed Buonanotte, but no, they were going after that Igor grouping, which is why Dunk had to play over there. So I don't know. I mean, maybe De Rossi is just some kind of genius that has now come into Roma and completely changed them up. At the same time, like I don't know. I feel like De Zerbi's got into a bit of an overthinking pattern lately, a lot with all the injuries. We've seen that with the keeper stuff. We've seen that here. We've seen that with his persistence of trying to make a 3 at the back work. Some questionable players playing in questionable roles. Again, easy to say this with hindsight, but like on paper, the team looked fine. Yeah, then it wasn't.
Yeah. The one big thing I can take away from 3,500 fans in Rome is that I heard a lot of discussion about the lineup in every line I was in, and there was a lot of lines. And I feel that the vocal minority is becoming more vocal and more minority as the weeks go by, because the general consensus of that lineup was essentially, oh no, not Jason Steele.
Oh yeah, still
From the
he's lost
food
the fan
queue
base.
to the stands, like everybody. So I know there are still an isolated group of people that are absolutely pro Steele, but sooner or later we've got to see that ship sail, because we saw some like for like examples this Sunday of Verbruggen's goalkeeping that we sorely could have used in Rome, frankly. Unfortunately, the first goal is not one of those instances. From our perspective, everybody in our end thought it was offside, like no doubt, with the way the ball was played. Everybody thought it was offside. The goal, well taken, 1-on-1 with the keeper from that foot. Like, you've got all the time in the world, and Dybala is not going to miss something like that, right? Like, not in the form he's in, especially. He's not just like one of those like FIFA players at this point. Like, he's actually like legit very, very good and on a roll. So scores the goal. Everyone is sure it's offside. Turns out like two players were playing him onside. Duncan, I think Igor as well. Both playing him onside. Great, fine. Second goal, however, and this is probably a night that Lewis Dunk never wants to remember, probably his biggest game of his entire career in Stadio Olimpico, and he is essentially at fault for 2 goals, which is just brutal for him. But the second one especially, what was he thinking when he took that touch? Because it was incredibly Adam Webster-esque, wasn't it? And secondly, we saw how you would want a goalkeeper to react to a one-on-one in a position like that. With Verbruggen against Forest, who made a superb save by rushing out and stopping the ball early. Unfortunately, Steele stayed much further on his line, and if you watch the goal back, he gives so much room to his near post that it essentially isn't his near post. And it's not even a great finish from Lukaku. It doesn't have to be, because his positioning is so poor. There was just acres of space. Like, I don't understand it. But what the hell is going on? Like, what a breakdown is that, both in the first and second goals. Like, it's not good.
Yeah, I can't even be bothered to blame Steele. It's been done at this point. Like, I feel bad for the guy. Like, he's give me more of a Verbruggen. By the way, like, I think very big sense of De Zerbi not wanting to just lob Verbruggen out into an away game in a knockout competition in Rome at those stakes. Like, Steele is, what, how many more years as senior? 10? Like, you put the older guy out there, especially if you expect more of a press away from home. And we've seemingly, I guess, at one point, Steele was the guy that you expected to be more comfortable with his feet, playing out from the back under pressure. Dunk, clearly for me, and I can see in the chat Mikey basically saying, like, did it happen because he didn't want to pass it to Steele? I don't see that. I think he just wanted to take a touch. He just wanted to bring the ball down and pass it back to Steele. I think that's what he was trying to do. And he just shanked it. It happens. But yeah, I think it raises a bigger thing with how the team capitulated. And again, how there is a pattern of behavior, because we alluded to this stuff earlier in the season. It doesn't take a genius, right? We've all seen how we play at the start of games. Like, we tend to be overwhelmed by the situation, especially away from home under big atmospheres. I want to come and talk about our away form in the Premier League at some point as well today. But we were overawed by the situation. And that's where these mistakes creep in. That's where you don't get your offside trap right because you're nervous. That's where you don't get your first touch right because you're nervous. And I think the team was just overwhelmed. And that's where these mistakes creep in. Like, yeah, could Jason Steele have done better? Yeah, sure. But he shouldn't have been in that position. He should have been put in that position by his defense either time. He was out of position on the first one because the ball should never get through to Dybala there. He's out of position on the second one because, one, he's a bit crap at goalkeeping. But two, Dunk was duffed it completely. That's on Dunk entirely.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That second goal, especially, is all Dunk's fault. The first goal is the cost of playing three at the back, which clearly does not effing work.
Three different guys constantly at the back that don't know maybe how to manage an offside trap together because they constantly look around as a different bloke each week.
That's what I was about to say as well. Just the rotation alongside being overwhelmed with the whole thing, right? And you nailed it. I'm not going to just repeat what you said, but it's a combination of the two. And I agree that's not on Steele. I think you've got a one-on-one where you're actually not expected to save it at all. And you've got Lukaku bearing down on you as well. He just got his lines wrong. But I don't think really. Do you think Verbruggen would have been better in those two situations? Probably not. There's obviously evidence where Verbruggen would be better or worse in those games, but for those two goals, the goalkeeper's always in I guess the larger odds there. So I do think there is a case for protecting Verbruggen at like 21 years old, right? He's going to have so many of those games in his future, but it just didn't work out, and you then find yourself 2-0 down to mistakes and errors, and we know what happens when we go down, and we try and claw our way back. We seldom do it, and that Thursday was no different.
The goal before half time as well, just I know it's like such a cliche, but like it really took the wind out of everyone's sails, like in the stadium, and it took it out of the start, and like you saw the 11 heads just gutted, like that in the manner of it, I think, and just all of it, it was just bad. But we weren't without our chances, were we? Especially in that, well, I mean, both halves really. Like we went out and caused them some serious issues, and I think that's probably what's most frustrating talking about this game. With the reality is this tie is all but over, right? Barring a miracle. We'll talk possibilities of miracle here shortly. Adam, you're on mute. Don't know if you know. But we're on. I
was referencing that. I thought remontada is coming in. That's what's happening. We're going to bring our own one.
We are we're in miracle territory. We know this. It's frustrating to be in this situation, but it is what it is. But the frustrating thing is we had our chances very much. Like we caused them some serious problems. We hit the bar or the post. I couldn't see from all the way down the other end. That was a dinger. And we caused the goalkeeper, we forced him into a couple of really good saves as well, multiple times. And there was at least twice in that second half where you need players to hit the target. Danny Welbeck, especially early in that second half, where he just spooned a chance miles over the bar, where if he gets it on target, who knows what's happening, because it's 2-1 and the game changes. But we had so many opportunities, and
two identical Welbeck chances almost. I think it was a dinger in, right? You kind of talked about like they were really good opportunities, really good. Like Danny Welbeck did a good job getting his head up on those, and maybe that changes the whole shape of the game. But then it was just taken out back and shot, wasn't it? The hopes and dreams died fairly quickly after that. Once the third went in, that was when it was like, okay, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, and it really did, didn't it? And ironically enough, they finished on 2.9 xG, Roma. And 1.9 of those were the first two goals. So when you really take into account of what they created outside of the two absolute gifts, it was the same as us. We had exactly 1 xG, and they had 1 xG without those two gifts that I would expect almost any Premier League team to score, frankly.
That is a gigantic pint of copium you are downing at the moment. I get it. So if we didn't give them 2 free goals, it would be a close run thing. That sums us up.
The issue is we talk about this every other week,
yeah,
do we not? And that's really why it's worth talking about, because this is every other week. Yeah. We should never have lost to Villa 6-1 if we didn't give them 4 goals for no reason. That's 4 goals in a football game. You can't give those away like that. but we did. And actually, if you cut out those horrendous errors, the performance isn't all that bad.
Well,
sheer
Fulham
amount
potentially springs to mind as well.
But it's
pretty,
the
but
level
same thing.
of these errors is just horrendous. Like, it's just unbelievable, and they are costing us games. Like, and now has cost us Europe and cost us the FA Cup, right, back to back in the space of 10 days.
We could say season, by the way. Like, we have to be careful here. Like, there's not to be too doom and gloom on this, because we are going to talk about getting 3 points off a very, very like frustrating week. Like, that shows a lot of character against Forest, right? But if Newcastle win today, at time of recording, we drop down to 9th, of which Wolves would be behind us, or are behind us by 1 point, and you've got the looming spectre of Chelsea and then Fulham behind them. So the two Southwest London teams would be there. Like, suffice to say, like, if we don't rescue this situation here, push Europe out the way now. You got to rescue this, because if this is not a top 10 season, it turns into like a really different conversation in the summer than if you rescue 8th place or something like that. So, yeah, it needs to be figured out.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I think Europe being over certainly helps with that, right? And I think that Josh alluded to it at the top. We've got a pretty big break after Thursday, with just no games. I assume some warm weather training somewhere, that they usually do. But you're right. What, 10 games left? And as we sort of round up the first leg of the Europa League, it's just a free hit on Thursday, right? I think it's something that we can try and go after, but I don't think anyone's expecting anything.
Yeah,
you just don't want injuries, do you, Josh?
Oh,
you just don't want injuries.
Yeah, that, and I think for De Zerbi, it's the mentality he talks about a lot, right? Like, I think losing on aggregate is pretty much accepted at this point. Winning 2-0 on the day would probably go a long way towards mentality for him and the squad. We saw quite clearly how much a 1-0 win at home to Forest meant to the coaching staff this weekend. You would think that they're just like qualified for the final, like, of a cup. They were unbelievably buzzing, and I think it says everything you need to know with the situation that we're in and the struggles we're going through. Does it make a difference if we're playing Roma 3-0 down? Because there's a very, very legitimate argument here that we should be going into this tie 3-0 down, not 4-0 down, because the third goal looked quite clearly offside. For me, I don't think it makes a difference if we're 3 or 4-0 down. But that goal, how did they come to that conclusion? It looks super clear. Even with lines drawn, it looks wrong. What happened there? Like, clearly Europe is not much better than the Premier League when it comes to these decisions.
Well, yeah, clearly not. Again, it comes down to the person using the tech, doesn't it? Right. But I don't get it. It just looked like a very rushed sort of decision or whatever. It just didn't take the time. But yeah, it's offside. And I think there's a bunch of screenshots and you can watch it for yourself and everything like that. But it shouldn't have stood. But I agree with you. It doesn't change the outcome of the day. It doesn't change how we probably feel about the game with it being 3 or 4. But at the time, you're 2-0 down and that gets disallowed. You're still in the game at 2-0. So that's something to bear in mind. Obviously, it's happened now, but it's just a weird one where you just don't get that call.
He's still on mute. Adam is still on
I
mute.
I forgot how to do this. Yeah, I forgot how to do it. Yeah, everything you said, I agree. Like, it's when you get to a point you're saying, oh, they got the third goal wrong. It's like, yeah, the ship has sailed, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, the refs and VAR are shit everywhere. That's pretty much where we're at. I just assume they make one wrong decision each week, and of course, maybe we got it in our favor on Sunday, so you can't complain too much.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that refereeing performance, because, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that game should have ended 10v10. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. So the fact that it ended 11v11 just shows that refs are absolute cowards from start to finish. And for once, it actually benefited us. Game comes to an end, 4-0. Roma fans are loving life. And really, the only other negative piece of this experience in Rome that I had was post-game, as we were kept behind for an hour or so to go home. Not a problem, right? We were sent emails telling us very clearly what the process was going to be post-game. A minimum of an hour being kept back, dependent on the result and situation. Obviously, I suspect if the scoreline was reversed, I may be recording this from there now. But obviously, with it being the result it was, we were out just under an hour. Actually, we're guided back to the buses with that kind of result. Not a surprise, right? Everyone's delighted, and off they go. I must say, 3,500 Albion fans went out there, spent a lot of money to do so, right? For the most part, took time off work. I've obviously attended enough games, or at least have a season ticket in order to be able to go to this game. So they're not, they're not tourists or, random fans that are just popping up for their first game of the year. And I was, for the first time in a long time, I was embarrassed by some of my fellow fans' behavior. The way they spoke to the Italian stewards who were holding us back was disgusting. When they eventually got hold of an English-speaking steward lady from Brighton who had come over with the club as one of the, the liaison stewards, the sexist comments and offensive remarks they made to her was absolutely disgusting. It caused a proper argument on the staircase as we were waiting. And it was just disgusting. Like, I just wanted to at least put that out there, that although there was some horrible behavior, obviously, from Roma fans, our fans are not exempt from being absolute scumbags abroad, because the way they spoke to these people was disgusting. And just, if you are one of those lucky fans that get to go to these places, like, please, like, just have slightly more decorum than some of the people that I unfortunately was near enough.
No one listening to this, those people, are they? They're sat there.
No, probably not. No,
just drooling somewhere, like absolute mouth breathers. We only get the high quality, thoughtful fans listening to this podcast. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, there's scum in every fan base, isn't there? It just is, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. They were probably on the Stella from 8 o'clock in the morning and wondering which family member to hit when they got home. But it was really gross. So Rome's over. All the rest and rotation we did came to absolutely nothing because we're not even in the tie. And there's a big game this weekend, and that's Forest at home. We had a hell of a fight with them at the City Ground earlier this season, with its own fair share of shitty refereeing and wild situations. But coming into this one, I can't help but think that I probably would have rather have seen a lot of that starting 11 and formation that lined up against Forest as opposed to Roma. I thought it looked far better balanced as a starting 11 altogether. So Verbruggen back in goal, Estepinian, Dunk, Van Heck, and Veltman as your back four. The back four that we generally consider our best back four that we've spoke about, or best back five even, that we've spoke about a little bit. Gross and Baleba and Moda in the middle as your kind of midfield three. Baleba, obviously the more holding midfielder, but Gross and Moda almost took turns rotating on the attacking side of things.
Yeah.
Fatty and Adingra and Ferguson up top. What did you make of that lineup as well? Like, how did you? Because for me, I was just like, I wish this lineup would. I feel like this lineup with this set of people, I probably would have been more confident with this group in Rome than I was with the ones that we lined up with now. And that was before the result. Obviously, this was right as I saw it.
I think balance is the right word, right? The back four was obviously a lot more deliberate with Veltman in the squad, or in the 11. Sorry, I think we love Veltman anyway. I think he's just a lot more defensive and is able to allow the winger in front of him to do what they do best. So it sort of unlocks the person in front of him, and he's defensively solid. Verbruggen, yes, we saw glimpses of his shot stopping yesterday or on Sunday as well. But you're right. I think balance is the right word. I don't think, personnel wise, you could probably put in people that are probably ability wise better, but you've got a middle three that works. You've got that front three that works, and a back four. So I agree with you. I would say relatively surprised that this sort of back three or five experiment, if you like to call it, was not happening here. It was a must-win game as well. So it was like, let's revert to type and let's go and get 3 points.
Yeah, just play 4-2-3-1. I don't know what we don't know why. I don't know why he tries to make three at the back happen. I just look, obviously De Zerbi has a footballing brain light years beyond what we could possibly comment on. So he's seen some kind of genius thing that we haven't. But all I know is that every time we play three at the back, we get battered. That's just how many to lose to 4-0 to Roma or whatever it was, 3-0 away at Fulham. We played it against Luton and lost 4-0. Clearly, he's like, when we're away in a tough game.
Its debut was Villa. That was the first time we played three at the back was Villa.
I've seen enough. Like, stop it. Stop doing it. Just play anyone in 4-2-3-1. I don't care who is in it. Put Poopy on a centre back. As long as you play 4-2-3-1, I don't care. That's pretty much all I've got to say on that.
I will proffer that actually he's not light years ahead. I actually think he's a little bit stubborn. And I think that, well, yeah, true. I think he's incredibly stubborn. And I think this is my theory on it that could be totally wrong. Obviously, we're not referring to Serbia or his coaching staff, but we got injuries, we got them quickly and we got them early. And we needed to find a way to adapt to the fact that every single fullback we had was hurt. Obviously, a back three is the option that we try and go for, and it didn't work. And I think he saw it didn't work, and he is continuing to try and make it happen so that when we undergo those injury crises in the future, ideally with him next season, hopefully, right? I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot between now and June. That we are equipped and able to transition between the two. We aren't there yet. I don't see a future where we will be there yet without a couple of key signings. But I think that's his thought process where he's like, I don't want to be left like effed and up shit creek again. I want to be able to transition to this if I need to. So I'm going to work hard on this working, and it ain't working. So whether he continues to try and make it happen, I don't know. But I feel like that's the only logical point I can find as to why he keeps doing it, because we've got Veltman and Estepinian that are both fit. Estepinian is clearly desperately in need of game time here, because when he comes on as a sub, even when he was at his absolute peak, he was crap as a sub. When he comes on now and he gets a start, he's very hit and miss. He needs a
lot of miss. A lot of miss. He was one of the best left backs in football last year.
Yep.
And he's not it. I agree. He needs a lot of form finding in the next few months.
All right, here we go. This is the worst situation possible. Omo Bamidele, I believe, is how we say it. That's my effort at it. I believe that is how we say it. We're going phonetic, and we're leaving it at that. Should he have been on the pitch for the own goal that he inevitably put in? He was booked in 19 minutes, and he committed the foul that got us the free kick that led directly to the goal. Personally, I think that tackle was more cynical and probably more of a yellow than the first one. I think it's absolutely yellow card offense. And I do understand, because this second yellow card stuff we talked about ad nauseum this season. Should he have been on the pitch? Should he have been second yellow carded? Is the ref an absolute bottle job? Yes or no?
Yes. And it's that lovely orange card stuff that we've talked about half to death. So it's a second bookable offense, but I think the timing of it and yeah, the ref just being incompetent just means that it isn't. I don't know, we're sort of hot kettle black here as well because of Jakob Moda's challenge, but it absolutely is. But Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, it's obviously it's another yellow card. He's just, I mean, I'm watching it right now. He just stepped in and just scythed Ansu Fati down like a sort of, yeah. I mean, it's a yellow card. There's nothing else to say. The ref's just is sort of a coward.
But he was for the whole game, right? I think even the US commentators picked up on this when I was watching it. But just like, what was it? 14 minutes in, like 19 minutes in, you got 2 yellow cards. So he's just set the tone for what is a yellow card and what isn't for the rest of the game, and then doesn't stick to his own principles. So immediately the ref's competency gets brought into question because he's not even sticking by the rules that he set out after 14 minutes when he gave a yellow card. So
you tend to see that with a lot of refs, don't you? They get all excited at the start and they throw out all the cards like it's Christmas, and then they go, "Oh crap, hold on."
And that's where the whole bottle job term comes in,
Yeah.
right? Where it's just like, oh no, but you can't give it for that and then not that, and then you bring the technology into it as well, and you end up just having a little bit of a circus, which is why, rightly so, a lot of people are talking about referees and their performances, because even when they do set the stall, they don't stick with it for 90 minutes.
This is one I don't think VAR could even review, right? Because it wasn't. You can't classify as clear and obvious error. Could you?
No. I think I think they review it if it's like serious foul play, isn't it? So unless he's high booted him in the jaw, there I don't think you're able to look at it.
They should be able to just be like, hang on, mate. You've just made a bit of a crap decision. Like they should be able to do that. They should be able to just be like, "Oh, you've absolutely messed this one up, man. Just give him the card. Actually, that was stupid."
Well,
I don't know
because they're all pals and they're all little circle, aren't they? So they won't do
that. The only benefit is Karma came back and helped us out for moments later. So there is that. How aggrieved we felt, I guess, was fairly short lived.
Especially after that free kick as well, you saw one of the worst goals that I've probably ever seen us score. So
precisely,
so ugly, so ugly.
They all count.
It was awful, but they do all count, and it was a goal we desperately needed. We are still without a goal scored by a Brighton player since Everton in the 95th minute, however, which is never nice, which is about 4.5 games ago now, five games, a while ago. But we absolutely beat the shit out of them for that first 28 minutes before the goal. We had 76% possession, 7 shots, 2 of those on target. We had 94% pass success rate, 3 corners. We beat the living crap out of them. And unusually for the Albion, if you go through the minutes as they tick by post-goal, our possession ticks slowly down every minute that goes by until we get to halftime where we were at 63% possession. As we keep going, it continues to go down as you move along. And it ends eventually at 64%. And it seems like it was a very pragmatic, ugly performance that prioritized getting a win and keeping a clean sheet, which is something that you haven't seen from De Zerbi. And we've talked about just a minute ago about him being super stubborn. It seemed like a very different game plan post-goal, didn't it, to you guys? Because it felt that way to me.
You can give him the credit if you want. I don't know whether I would maybe say it was just.
It doesn't need to be a De Zerbi thing, but like maybe a team mentality thing too. Of like maybe they didn't want to go to the level.
We want the possession. That's the control. That is the control of a game. Like, there's no way De Zerbi didn't say at halftime, "Hey, look, we need to control this game. Control the game. Keep the ball. Control the game. Do what we do." Like, he would. There's no way he would have been like, yeah, just give him the ball for a bit. Like, let him come back. And by the way, if Origi wasn't so awful at football, like they could have very, very easily got back into the game. So yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I think probably what we actually saw was a team that came out furious after a game on Thursday and said, you know what, we're gonna do something here. We're gonna get a result, and then they started to run out of gas and it got the better of them. And Forest, as you said the other day, this was a Forest team that had a lot of time to think about this game. Not too much in the way of injuries. I think they've got 2 injuries, whereas we've obviously got the hospital wing. Like they physically prepped for this game, and I think we were less so. So I don't actually think that second half was not ideal for us. It really wasn't.
I think we rode our luck a little bit as well. I think you're right. There was a tired element to this, right? You got one on Thursday, one on Sunday. He just took a battering in Rome, all the travel. Then you go and face a Forest team that's physically and mentally prepared. I just don't think we could have done it for 98 minutes or whatever it was. It's good that we got the goal. I think goals are drying up at the moment. But yeah, I think we rode our luck, and we're lucky that Forest aren't as good, aren't good at all, to be honest. So it was one of those.
Aren't as good. Actually, they're shit.
Yeah.
If Luton were to win today, Forest are in the relegation zone, depending on the
and pending a points deduction as well, right? So they could be up the creek without a paddle. Very, very sharpish. But this is the thing: is that going into this game, and you look at the team sheet before the game, you go, you have to win this. Like, regardless of where you are in the table, if you were 19th or if you're second, right? You're looking at Forest at home and you're thinking we need to get 3 points here, regardless. And I'm glad we did, but we did ride our luck a little bit. You're right. Origi is probably better suited off the pitch than on. And I think sometimes the gamesmanship at the end was something that we also haven't seen for a while either. So it did feel like very much hunker down towards the end and just try and eke out this result, which we desperately needed.
Yeah, I suppose it's a good time to move on to the players themselves and talk about some individual players throughout the last 2 games. Julio Enciso, crap at Rome. Just didn't even know he was on the pitch half the time. He is going to be a slow burn back, I think. We just need to ease him back over the course of the season, make sure he doesn't get hurt again, and just wait for next season. It feels like he looks well off it for me. Someone who doesn't and continues to insist that he's not ready is Carlos Baleba.
Mm-hmm.
He was excellent, and I'm struggling to see what De Zerbi sees that we're not seeing, because physically he looks ready, and positionally and game awareness this week, he looks ready. Even if it's teams like Forest that he will be put out there against, and not maybe Manchester City or Liverpool coming up, that's fine if that's necessary. But I don't see that he's not ready part, especially when De Zerbi talked about having to play Van Heck in midfield because he didn't have midfielders available, and Baleba was on the bench that day. I don't understand, because I thought he was excellent against Forest. I'm not following that at all.
Yeah, we move back to the how stubborn is De Zerbi. By the way, there's a precedent been set here, right? We've seen this with players that have fallen out of his good graces, and it doesn't go very well for the player or the club, depending on your perspective. We saw this with Trossard, we saw this with Robert Sanchez, we saw this with Mahmoud Dahoud. Baleba was probably arguably the best player on the pitch yesterday, depending on your perspective, right? Some of those interceptions he made, the driving runs forward that he had as well. He nearly scored with his left foot, I think, trying to curl one in. That's great. It's so weird when you play a player that can tackle in the midfield. I didn't know we were allowed to play a defensive midfielder. I thought we just had to put 2 playmakers in there and see what happened. So just by product of that is a benefit. Who knows what Baleba would have looked like against Rome? Because equally, you could have seen him just being overwhelmed, yellow carded 15 minutes in, and Rome just running rings around anyway. It's so hard. But for a game like this, when you think you need to stop counter-attacks, apply some pressure, break up some play, and then bring the ball forward. Baleba starts to look a little bit more like that Caicedo role that you used to have, and you very, 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 very much miss.
Yeah. Talking of centre midfielders that can't tackle, Craig, I actually thought he had an excellent 67 minutes until he got booked. But there's no way he should have been on the pitch after that, right, Jakub Moder?
No, I thought he was good. I just he had a good header in the first half as well. I think his stature lends quite well to what we try and use him for. And I think he's really good, especially going forwards. I thought he had a good game. It should have ended on 67 minutes. And I think we can all probably agree on that. And another issue with VAR, you win some, you lose some. That's the nature of the beast. And we got lucky with this one. He's off the ground, studs up, makes contact, and they've looked at it and gone, "No, you're absolutely right, mate. That is a yellow card." It got off scot-free with that one. I can't believe that was not a red card.
I'm watching it back
like
now.
Gilmore and Moder should have been switched up. Really,
Yeah,
I could see why. I could see why Gilmore could have got away with a yellow. I don't see any physical possible way Moder is anything less than a red.
I don't understand how anyone with eyes looked at this on slow motion and decided anything but serious foul play and a red card. And also one of those ones that potentially is then re-reviewed after the game and the ban is extended. Like, that's an ankle breaker tackle. Like, absolutely heinous, disgusting. If it happened to one of our players, we'd be outraged, absolutely outraged. Oh, you would have. It's another player we're going to lose for months and months. But like, it was disgraceful. But again, another representation of how disgusting and pathetic VAR is. Even then, if you go on and watch the Liverpool City game later, I mean, it's definitely a penalty at the end for me as well there. Like, I give up.
And it was so fast. That review was so quick.
They just didn't want the hassle.
You're probably, you know what? It's really sad that you're probably right. In a game like that at 1-1.
Too high stakes.
98th minute? Yeah, you're probably right.
It's easier to not do the right thing sometimes, isn't it? I think that's spot on with what it is. The only possible, and this is, I'm not giving any shred of validation towards referees whatsoever. The only thing I can think of is that Gibbs White tries to trip Moder up before he goes in for the lunge, but I don't think it affects his ability to jump off the floor. But that's the only possible thing that I could think of that has gone in our favor, is that Gibbs White tries to Beckham him on the floor, and I think it's too far apart, but it's the only shred of possible thing I could think of in the other way. Otherwise, it's a red and a ban extension, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mental. All right, Roma away at home, rather. What do you want this starting 11 to look like? I'll give you a spoiler. Verbruggen's starting. I guarantee you that, because we've worked out De Zerbi's 3-game rotation bullshit strategy, and this is game 2 for Bart. So he definitely starts on Thursday. What is the other 10 looking like for you two, given that we're in an odd situation where the tie is almost definitely over unless we make Amex like the new Anfield on a Thursday night? Like, it's not happening. But winning in general would be good for the mentality that they value so heavily. And we have a 17-day break after this.
I don't want to sound like churlish, but I don't care. Like, I just don't see. It's different, right? I think if we were in a position where it felt like we were earlier in this season, and especially last season, where we felt like this free scoring powerhouse, where you're like, even in this situation, you come into the game thinking, I'll tell you what, I know they're going to defend really heavily, but I still fancy us being out. We get 2 goals in the first half. I see us doing something here. Goals have been so hard to come by for us. That when you face an Italian side that is going to come and play an away game, providing they don't concede 4 goals, they're okay. It's going to be really, 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 really tricky. So yes, we get a rest, but you cannot, for me, like risk another injury to a big ticket player. So I'd like to play those players that we want to see find form. I want to see Estupinian play. I want to see Ansu Fati try and not look like he plays for a Belgian B League team. I think maybe you have a bit more of Baleba come in, right? Maybe you see if Evan Ferguson remembers how to score. But I'd quite like to see a little bit more of that for this game, because frankly, you've got too little to lose at this point. But you go back to De Zerbi, he's going to have a lot of pride. He's not going to want to be humiliated by his mate. And I could certainly see De Zerbi going, you know what, strongest 11, whatever that is to him, and we'll see what we can do.
Especially with, in his mind, a 2.5 week break, right? You go, right, let's go for it, and we've got some time to recoup if we need to. But yeah, I don't think he's going to want to lose this game. He doesn't want that aggregate to be any worse. But we'll see. And also, you've got an Italian side coming away from home protecting a 4-0 lead. It's going to be the most agonizing game to watch from a gamesmanship perspective you're ever going to see.
Oh yeah,
so
Moyes level.
The ball will be in play for about 23 minutes. There'll be 2 Roma players down at any one time, and there'll be 3 balls in the parking lot as well. So that's what is going to happen, and that's why I think I'm also with you in that I don't really have a lot of attachment for this game, because the writing's kind of on the wall and it's kind of dead. But you never know. I think there's that 1% chance, right, of like what if. So we'll see. But I think you're right. You play people that you want to give experience and form to try and get a good result here, and just don't get embarrassed.
Like I give Adingra a rest here, Josh. Like I give it. She's played a lot of games. AFCON. Yep. Like just give him a break. Put someone else in.
Yeah, I agree with you on that for sure. I think you've got. Let me look at the subs that came on. Yeah, I think you're perfectly able to give Adingra a break, and you have that front group of Fati, Buonanotte, who didn't play at all against Forest, fully rested, and Cisse.
Ferguson or Welbeck. Oh yeah, you can play Cisse. Yeah.
Or Ferguson and Welbeck as part of like a 2, like whatever you want. Like if you want Welbeck playing out on the right, which they've done before, and on the left, they've played him everywhere. They don't Welbeck. So yeah, I won't mind any of that.
I don't want to see Welbeck. We're due an injury. We're due a Danny Welbeck injury, and I don't want to see it. I don't, because God, if he gets sidelined, ugh. No.
Yeah, we are obviously off for a fair amount of time after that. And we have, I will be going to that game, by the way, even though it is a dead rubber. I refuse to put my tickets up for sale because I will never forgive myself if we do it. Like,
that shows character.
I know it ain't. I know it isn't. Like, I know it's not going to happen. But like,
what if it does?
Like, yeah. I just feel like the biggest idiot ever to not be sat there on that night, because I don't know if you saw, but like the amount of tickets that got put up for resale Thursday night and Friday morning was crazy, like hundreds. And I get it, I really do, but like I just can't bear to think that like I would just sitting at home watching it, I would like be kicking myself, like it'd be awful. So I've got the day booked off anyway. I'm just gonna treat it as a nice couple of days off work and just go down there and have a nice time.
If you go in with low expectations, it's okay. Yeah, you can't be disappointed. I guess you could, but like it's hard to be.
Yeah, I mean, another 4-0 wouldn't be good, would it?
That would be less than ideal.
But after that, our running is absolutely brutal. We have 10 games to go, as Craig said. Home games: Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Villa. Away games: Liverpool, Newcastle, Brentford, Burnley, and Bournemouth. We have, as you say, a very packed mid-table group there, and we have to play a couple of them, as well as basically everybody above us, with the exception of Burnley and Brentford. This is basically the worst-case scenario for us, isn't it? We're weakened. We've got loads of injuries. We're about to crash out of Europe. We've crashed out of the FA Cup. We're trying to salvage whatever we can. And we have, statistically, the hardest run in the league based on average position of opponent. There is a team currently that has a harder run-in than us. João Pedro will be likely back for Liverpool, probably from a bench perspective. But De Zerbi seems very sure that he will be back for then. So what are you hoping for now? We're looking at down the barrel of the final 10 games. Europe's gone, FA Cup's gone. Everybody is hurt, and our run-in is the hardest in the league. You're looking at that league table. Where do you consider a successful season in the perspective that we're now in come game 38 and full-time whistle goes at home to Manchester United?
Well, I don't. Successful season is different, maybe from where I'd say like achievable and acceptable from this point, because
that's what I'm going for. Achievable and acceptable from game 28.
You need to finish in the top 10. And I know a lot of the people are focused on like, oh god, we got to qualify for Europe or fit. I'm good on that for now. Also, it was great. We've seen Europe this year. Wonderful. Did it. Check the box. Let's give that a miss next year. Let's focus on maybe the home competitions first. I really think, I just hope De Zerbi figures something out here and the team figures something out mentality wise during this period of time, because we need to have a big shift in terms of where we're at. Like if you look at this Forest game, it's great to get the 3 points. This was a massive 3 points, but performance-wise, like great. Like we talked about it. It's not like, oh my God, we're back.
Below par. And we have been for 5 or 6 games now. And that's
exactly.
My fear.
And that's the thing that needs to happen, because we can all talk, we can look at this and be like, oh, I expect to get a point from here. Well, you can't say that. We can't even look at the fixture list anymore and be like, oh, we'll get a point here, we'll get 3 points here, because who'd have looked at our latest results and go, oh yeah, we're going to lose 4-0 to Luton. We'll probably like lose 3-0 to Fulham. Like, no, those are the games that you're like, hold on, we're going to pick up 6 points from that. Our away form for me is the other thing that is just has to be like that character, that metal needs to be there within this team. Maybe a João Pedro coming back helps to galvanize that and bring the team together a little bit more. Almost like, oh God, it sounds really nerdy. It's Gandalf is coming over the hill at Helm's Deep, right? The sun's shining, he comes in, he's back, and everyone's happy again. We're going to win. That's how João Pedro feels like to me, to this team, towards the tail end of this season, because it has to change. I look at
anybody good with Photoshop. I beg,
yeah, please.
A Gandalf Pedro crossover. Like I will buy you a beer on Thursday.
Cannot be worth anyone's time. But if you look at our away form in the league this year, I don't know if anyone's actually like glanced at this lately, but like in the Premier League this year, barring like your Sheffield United, who, well, fairly historically bad team, right? We know about that. We know about Forest, obviously we beat them earlier in the season. Outside of that, you haven't won an away game since the opening 2 games of the season. You built a Wolves who hadn't figured out what team they were at that point, and then Man United, who were, well, continue to be a laughing stock, but were particularly a laughing stock at that point. Outside of that, you're only 2 wins away from home this season in the Premier League, as Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest. That's it. That you have to do something about that towards this like latter part of the season. How, I don't know, but hopefully it's João Gandalf can at least do something towards it.
12th in the league table away from home is where we would be. Funnily enough, Sheffield United, Burnley, Forest, Fulham, Luton, Brentford, Palace and Newcastle are below us. So that gives you a good idea of where their struggles have been this season too. But yeah, it's not good. 15 points from 14 games away from home. And as you say, you take away that August and this season looks really dodgy.
But let's give credit where it's due. Now, on the flip side, our home form for the first time in what feels like a long time, the Amex has become a place for us.
Only Liverpool and City have a better record at home.
We only lost to West Ham. That stupid West Ham game.
One game all season. Yep.
Yeah.
Liverpool and City are unbeaten at home this season. Arsenal have lost one. We have lost one. The next best is the much vaunted Villa Park. They've lost 3 times at home.
They've fallen off
in quick succession as well, because it's been very recent.
Downside being is that is going to be tested. As you say, our home games, the home games are Arsenal, Chelsea, Villa, Man United, Man City. There's just not a way to really like make that much harder.
It's tough. It's the hardest running in the league, isn't it? So I think coming back to it, I think top 10 is probably the achievable, right? And I think we sort of said at the start of the season anyway that anywhere in that sort of 8th to 11th realm would be okay, right? That would suffice to be acceptable, and it still is for me. I think finishing 10th, finishing 11th is not a problem. Anywhere lower than that, and I think you start thinking, was this successful, or was it a little bit of a misstep? So I guess we'll see. But I agree, the Europe thing is obviously a detriment, right? We probably should focus on domestic stuff. Whilst it's amazing that Josh and Robin get to go to all these amazing places and we sit on our asses watching it on Peacock, there's another thing. But we just need to be able to focus. We don't have the depth.
Yeah, Mikey brings up an interesting thing as well, right? Talking about we need to play better against better teams, because for a while that was kind of our thing. That was like the thing we did. Yes, we'd have these abject results against lower, bottom half teams, and then we'd come out and then win at Anfield. And there's just not been a ton of that. I can really only pinpoint what the Spurs home game was probably like the main one where it was really like oh wow, okay. And it hasn't really
as well. They started the season really well. Then they absolutely shit the bed and have been terrible since.
Sure, but that was the home game, right? That was for us, so that contributes to Newcastle's horrendous away form, one of the worst in the league, as you say. So it counts, but I agree. Like we need to figure out what made that work. It's tricky. What's Matoma's situation?
He's done.
Out for the season, right?
He's completely done, isn't he? So it's literally it's João Pedro and
Pedro, Gilmore, and Milner. Milner, João Pedro, and Gilmore are the only 3 that are realistically coming back this season. And obviously, I mean, Gilmore's banned, so obviously it's realistic that he's coming back. But those 3 are the only 2. Everybody else that's on the injury list are gone, done.
If we finish outside the top 10, Josh, is De Zerbi gone?
No, I don't think we're sacking him on performance this season.
I'm not saying that. Regardless. I mean, does he go, I didn't get the support needed to do this, it's damaging my reputation, I'm going to take the first job offer?
I think in his head, maybe. I think it all depends, and it's such a cop-out, I know, and I've said it the whole time, but that conversation that he will be having sometime in May, because it's not always right after the last game, right? Sometimes it's like 2 weeks before the last game. Like that conversation he will be having in May is so important that, like, again, it feels like Michael Owen analysis. Of course it is. But it's so crucially important as to whether he stays or goes is the pitch that Bloom and Barber give him in that final meeting as to what he believes that support is going to look like. And I think that not only that, if it doesn't look like that has taken place by August 31st, I think he's absolutely out of here, regard. And I think if the wind looks like it's blowing that way by July, that he's not getting the backing that he should be getting or believes he's going to get, I think he will take that first job offer that comes his way. Unfortunately, he could end up finishing 8th, get us into the Conference League, have an unbelievable barnstorming finish to the season.
Oh, yeah.
And Bayern Munich come in and take him away anyway.
I was about to say, that's I'm more worried about him absolutely smashing the end of the season and then being cherry-picked, right? Because I think for your elite teams, if this season does finish in a 12th or 13th position, I just don't see him being able to walk into one of those jobs. Not yet, right? I think the credentials are still there to be published, right? There's no doubt that he's an amazing manager, but if you take us from 6th to 12th or 13th and Bayern Munich and Barcelona are sniffing around, it needs to be a very good business case to bring him in, because that tangibly doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's just, I think this is the year, because there's so many of those top jobs going. It's a bit of a rarity where it feels like there's a case can be made for a club to bring someone like him in, even if it does feel like a bit of a punt, right? Just because there are just so many options, so many landing spots for him. I just hope this rejuvenation of form in so many of the players just feels like it really could just switch overnight and suddenly, because think how many players you could classify on our team that are not playing to the potential that we know they're capable of. It's nearly all of them, but especially it's Evan Ferguson, Ansu Fati, it's Pervis Estupiñán. There's a bunch of like very high quality players there, Champions League tier players, in some cases, that are playing very, very poorly. Now, if they suddenly decide that they're going to start playing very, very, very well again, this latter part of the season looks very, very different for us. Again, it was not that long ago. Ansu Fati was the next coming of Lionel Messi, as Pervis Estupiñán was playing Champions League games and was one of the best left backs in the world. Evan Ferguson was about to be bought by Chelsea and Man United, and he was going to be the next Alan Shearer. This was months ago. Months. We just need to get back to a bit of that.
Yeah, we do. Just to wrap as well on the De Zerbi thing, because there's so many like things with the managerial merry-go-round, and we're going to talk about it as we go. But we need to wrap up ASAP, really, because my missus is going to punch me in the face if I don't. But this hasn't
You'd get to go to Rome, to be fair. So yeah, you got to
go. This hasn't been talked about either, really. But we're probably looking at quite a few top-level managers becoming available for free this summer, and not enough is being discussed about the fact that even though De Zerbi is available in the summer, it's still going to cost people the best part of £12 million to talk to him. That's before a deal gets done and his coaching staff, right? So we're talking 20 million quid probably all in on getting Roberto De Zerbi and his team into your team. That's a lot of money for anybody, right? And we know FFP is starting to bite all around Europe now. People are suddenly being held responsible when they haven't been for the last 10 years. I don't know. But when you look at the teams, Aston Villa, Unai Emery, he doesn't have a release clause. Look at how much because I Googled it, he doesn't have a release clause at all. If he gets Villa top 4 and one of those really big boys come calling, doesn't matter if you're Villa in the top 4, that he's going to go to Bayern Munich if he's given the chance, right? You look at some of the others around us. Eddie Howe could be a free agent at the end of this time. That's a lot of Premier League teams that could be looking at De Zerbi that are higher paid that would take a flyer on him instead. Pochettino is likely to be free again. Do they go, Pochettino's a good manager in Chelsea or a joke, or do they do Pochettino's a bit washed? I don't know, but he's likely to be free. Thomas Frank is probably going to be a free man come the end of this year. Like, there's been lots of rumors about him being binned off at the end of the season. There's definitely plenty of teams that would take a flyer on him. And then we've got a bunch of them in the European landscape that are probably going to be poached, right? Your Xabi Alonso's, your Flicks. All of these people are like cheap, free. Like, they're not going to cost you £20 million to get them in the door. And I think that is on our side, regardless of what conversation happens at the end. I think that's going to really be a big difference maker if a lot of these managers do free themselves up, both internally in our league and then some of the massive jobs European-wise as well.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, it's not like Thomas Tuchel, Xavi will be out of work forever. This year's a season too soon for Klopp to move on to his next club, obviously. But, you know, he will then move to another job. But, yeah, I think you're right. But at the same time, there's buy low candidates at the moment. And then there's the ones where you're just like De Zerbi, if he does do what we talked about, bring us to a nice tail end of the season. He now has a body of work where you're like, De Zerbi has made gold out of nothing. No one's taking a look at bloody Eddie Howe or Pochettino for a top job now. They've had enough time to fuck up situations, and they've done it very well. Maybe that's a bit harsh on Eddie Howe, but no one's talking about Eddie Howe going to a Bayern Munich or whatever, whereas De Zerbi's being talked about for every single one of these jobs. That's my only slight worry, is which De Zerbi's the gem. He's the one that they go, okay, we could get this young, semi-unproven manager here who's doing some cool stuff, plays attractive, fun football. Let's get him in. Or you know what? Hold on, who else is available? Eddie Howe. No one's doing that. No one's doing that.
No, I wasn't putting Eddie Howe in those jobs. I was putting him in those like Manchester United. I can absolutely imagine them going for a manager like Eddie Howe.
Really? No,
yeah,
I mean, maybe.
Or Chelsea. They're stupid enough to go for an Eddie Howe.
No, I think you've got new ownership at both of those clubs, right? Well, obviously, but Man United especially, they're going to want to put a new stamp on, new identity for Man U. And then Chelsea.
Robin is convinced that Graham Potter is going to United. He's convinced.
He is, isn't he? Yeah. Can you imagine that being your new identity? Well, I saw Chelsea made that mistake already, didn't they?
That was their new identity. You don't have to imagine it. It happened.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it there. We will be back next week to talk Roma and the break and the final run-in of the 10 games left. And then we'll take a little break ourselves.
Post remontada.
Yep. All right. Have a good week, everybody.